Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app. Hub24 is on a mission to empower advisors to deliver better financial futures for their clients. They are dedicated to customer service excellence and delivering innovative product solutions that create value for advisors and their clients. These are just some of the reasons why advisors rate them number one for overall satisfaction and why their managed portfolio solution has been rated best in market 5 years running. Hub24 believes nothing happens in isolation. So they're working together with advisors, licensees, and industry leaders to leverage their data and technology expertise to help solve key challenges in the delivery of financial advice, so more Australians can access cost-effective advice. Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I'm joined by Richard Dunkerley. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Fraser. I can't tell you how excited I am to be invited onto your prestigious show.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. It's great to have you chat today. So we're going to talk about all sorts of different things, and specifically a digital spring clean, something that we both geek out about quite a bit. So it'll be one of those episodes that we'll both be on fire with, I'm sure. In the meantime, though, do you want to give us a quick background about yourself? Tell us about your journey into what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, sure. So right now I've entered the world of small and medium enterprises. So I'm an SME. So I run a business called the Limelight Department, and I describe it as a virtual creative agency and communications agency, working with other SMEs specifically in financial services. I guess you could say we're a one-stop shop. We do everything from marketing and branding strategy and value prop development through to the implementation of that strategic work through advertising, content, social, media relations, events, even down to presentations and so on. I'm the strategy and copywriting guy, and I guess you'd say I'm the project manager. So I sort of bring together the other resources in the network, which includes designers, PR specialists, and customer experience experts. I've been running this business for a couple of years now, and as you'd know, and maybe some of your listeners might remember, prior to that I did about 10 years as the head of marketing and comms at Zurich, and was privileged to sort of play a part in some pretty exciting things that unfolded with their business. And yeah, my whole career has been in financial services, largely in marketing and comms, but a little bit in product. So I can sort of hold my own if it comes to sort of geeky technical product conversations, although I try and steer away from those as much as possible these days. So yeah, that's me and my journey.
There's certainly a few. There's certainly a time of the year at the moment where there's a lot of product conversations going on. But today we're not talking about product, and we're going to get into very much the digital spring clean side of it. As you mentioned, you've been in financial services for a long period of time. You know how advice businesses work. You know a lot of planners and advisors very well, and you certainly know what when it comes to a lot of the marketing and the communication stuff that goes on inside their businesses, how that might react with their clients. So thank you so much for joining us. As we just talked about, the digital spring clean is today's topic. We've sort of got about 7 tips and points and conversation things to talk around. So let's get started. Tell us where are we going to start with this actually? If we're going to do a digital spring clean, where should we start?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's worth saying that in the context of this particular spring with IDII and DDO and various other sort of regulatory things, maybe this particular spring is one of the busiest ones on record. But look, conceptually, the idea is that just like the the real sort of literal spring clean, that once a year you take the opportunity to really take a step back and, look at in this case, your digital presence, whether it be across social media, how you're appearing on sort of Google search, how your content strategy is sort of playing out. It's the point in time where you take a step back and look at all those things, ideally through someone else's eyes, the eyes of your sort of customers, and just to see if there are opportunities to really give it a bit of a tweak here and there and make sure it's in tip-top shape heading towards the back end of the year.
Yeah, fair enough. And giving it a tweak is one way. I'm hoping that most of our listeners will only need to do a tweak from here and there, but obviously some people may need to actually think about things that we're talking about and start from fresh in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, look, I think by virtue of the fact that we're talking to your listeners, your network, I think it's probably fair to say that they are more likely to be at the end of the spectrum that's a bit more sophisticated in terms of their handle on various aspects of their digital presence and how they're using various digital means and channels to grow their business and engage their customers. But yeah, I guess it's fair to say there are also pockets, albeit a diminishing sort of group, but there are some for whom, even the idea of their Google presence is kind of, a little bit sort of advanced for them. But yeah, fortunately, most people, when I first started talking about social, back in 2012, I actually set up what was then the first YouTube channel across the entire Zurich global network, which is pretty amazing in retrospect, given it's a massive sort of global company. But I think that back then the lawyers were sort of getting involved, and there was this, there were terms thrown around like viral, and I think there was a fear of, if we're talking social, there was a fear of, people were just going to pile on and reputations going to be trashed, kind of overnight with all these negative comments. It's not the way it's sort of panned out now, and social is actually becoming such an integral part of how advisors are engaging not only with existing clients but in terms of their sort of building their brand and their marketing presence. And I think philosophically, the idea that if there's going to be a conversation about you and your practice, it's going to happen whether you take part in it or not. And I think you've got more chance of being able to control the narrative if you're actually sort of active and sort of taking part in it. But yes, we've certainly come a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably that word control to me is one of those things that a lot of businesses would have feared and was scared of, and the lawyers losing control or working in a space where you don't have total control. Because I guess marketing or digital messaging about a business has always been so controlled from inside the business, and social media was one of those things that all of a sudden control was not necessarily 100% inside the business. It was external.
Yeah, I think, and without labouring the point about lawyers too much, but certainly the sort of institutional ownership, those sort of advisors who were part of AFSLs that were sort of institutionally aligned, it's fair to say that their risk tolerance was quite a bit lower. And it seems ridiculous now to think back to, there was an unnamed dealer group who literally was wanting to sign off individual tweets, and that was back in the days of 140 characters.
Yeah, certainly the 140 character individual tweets, and a lot of that stuff around getting approval is a bit crazy too for social media, considering obviously social media is best done when it's live and hot and a message comes through, and you want a fast response time. Yeah,
I think there's a few ways that I guess the landscape has changed in that regard. Obviously, I think we're seeing a lot of advisors now in either a self-managed, self-licensed kind of scenario, or certainly they're with smaller kind of boutiques who are a bit more entrepreneurial in in this sense. But I think also, platforms have changed, and I think there's just a sort of a realization that this fear that negative commentary was going to go viral, it just doesn't really sort of play out that way. And so it's now seen, if we're talking social, it's seen as a positive. It's not a trivial, it's not truly about social in the sense of it being non-business related. It's something that now the most progressive sort of businesses are really starting to harness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's social, and more than the way it's two-way rather than a one-way communication. So if we're talking about advisors and a digital spring clean, what should advisors be focusing on with their social media coming up at the moment?
Well, look, when we talk about a digital spring clean, I guess there's a few key aspects of their sort of digital communication that are worth sort of talking about. So social media is obviously one, but even things like their presence on Google, in terms of the way the business is kind of turning up in Google Maps, how you turn up when you try and search for yourself, how you show up when clients or potential clients sort of search for a financial advisor in their particular area. There's Google ratings, the whole sort of use of ratings now by customers is becoming more and more, the way they sort of search for things. Digital also encompasses your sort of content strategy, whether that be, blogs or video content. And then, digital also encompasses how you are engaging with clients and prospects. And of course, we're increasingly doing that in a Zoom kind of world. I mean, Zoom now being a verb as well as a noun. And I think, there are elements to video sort of engagement that require a specific focus as well, because some things that might work in a face-to-face context don't automatically translate into a Zoom engagement. So I think there's more than likely opportunities for advisors to improve, or at least take a look at what they're doing in that space as well.
Yeah, 100% agree. There's so much you can do in and around that. So there's probably a lot of different subjects then we can cover, the from the maps, the ratings, the searching and the content strategy and the digital meeting presence. Let's quickly finish off on the social media. So, I'm a big believer that obviously the social media, people can do a lot with their social media presence when it comes to just the imagery that they're using and the consistency across the brand, and to be able to look at some of the to maybe pay somebody to take a really good photo, or to take some good photos of the staff and look at putting them up on the social.
Yeah, I think, in terms of practical tips, something that I've been sort of helping advisors with for years is simple things like avatars on LinkedIn, and making sure their LinkedIn sort of URL is not the automatically generated one, but they can actually tailor it to their business, make it a lot more searchable, a lot more neat. But certainly things like photographs and the way they describe themselves, I think, again, a simple thing, but advisors who run their own practice and like the kind of the ego sort of enhancing ability to be able to say they're a chief executive or they're a director, but in a search context that doesn't mean much. And so just something simple like actually describing what you do rather than your sort of job title or your kind of ownership status. But I think, something that's exciting for me, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword in a social context, is the way that new platforms are becoming increasingly popular as a means to share sort of financial content. And, I think what's really sort of exploded almost since the start of the pandemic has been the growth of, TikTok in particular, but also sort of Instagram. So we're seeing now, a lot more use of those channels, which I guess, TikTok's obviously relatively new, but Instagram was always the place that you went for happy snaps of holidays or cocktails or cars or drinks or whatever. It wasn't a place for sharing serious financial content. And I think what's really sort of happened the last couple of years is we've seen that, well, two things. One, younger people in particular have an absolute thirst for financial topics, financial knowledge. They do want to be educated about things to do with their money. They're quite self-aware that a lot of them have bad kind of financial habits. And, what we're seeing, and the research has shown this, is that Instagram and TikTok are places to go for educational content. Now, obviously, when I mentioned the double-edged sword, that we've seen at the same time the rise of the finfluencer, this largely unlicensed, unqualified sort of group of predominantly younger people who are just giving tips dare I say, they're sort of on the edge of what's sort of legally allowed or not. But I think, put aside the issue of whether they're giving advice or not, I think the fact is that they are catering to a demand. And so there's a few things there. One, it's shown that there is an absolute demand out there for education about financial topics, and that's positive for advisors. Secondly, it's shown that people want to engage with people that I guess are like them, or more authentic. And typically these influencers, they're not talking with a lot of jargon. They're talking in language that's very relatable. And I think that can be a positive lesson as well. And certainly you've seen a couple of advisors, some sort of high profile ones that have gone into that space. They are licensed, and they're doing great things off the back of it in terms of money coaching, and they're offering paid subscription services to various sort of coaching sort of programs, as well as just general sort of hints on how to get your credit card debt under control, and how to save for Christmas gifts and that sort of thing.
Yep, I see this social side of this, the equation, the digital social side of it. It's got to be a two-way street. Yes, there's a lot of getting someone's attention, but then there's the conversation off the back of that, which is generally where things happen. The direct messaging, the conversations out of the back, like you said, the language in the initial conversation could be educational or one way, or relevant for the person who's going through things. But I think that people that use social media really well are the ones that turn it into an engagement piece. That it's not just a one-way engagement. There is a conversation or something else off the back of it that actually happens.
Yeah, look, I guess the best example of that is Facebook, and maybe to a lesser extent Twitter. But you're right, all these platforms have some sort of direct messaging facility in them. And certainly when I was at Zurich, one of the things I really pushed for was for people in the business to reframe how they thought about Facebook, because really the way people, Zurich clients were using Facebook was to contact us as if it was another channel. So for them, it was a substitute for email or a phone call. It was just a lot more convenient. They weren't really going there to sort of comment on things. They're actually going there to actually try and get in touch with us. And as you say, it is more of a two-way kind of channel rather than a place that you just go and sort of post content expecting sort of comments. And so a lot of businesses as well as Zurich, they look to actually control of social was actually moved into their customer service area, because it was realized that it was not really a marketing thing. It was more of a genuine sort of communication channel.
So we mentioned language, and obviously language is a big part of this. with social media, and I know, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people aren't just saying they're an advisor or they're a managing director, but they're using more of like a story brand type language where they might say, I help people like this solve these types of problems, and this is what we do. Where you're putting the listener or the reader or the client or the customer as the hero of the journey, and you as the oracle or the problem solver.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a few different sort of strands to what you just said there. One, clients do not have anywhere near the sort of knowledge, nor do they want the knowledge of products or terminology or jargon. And so the way they, in the context of, say, how they search for help in the sort of financial advice space is they won't go in and plug in a whole bunch of product terms. They won't plug in, phrases around statement of advice or fact find or, trauma insurance or whatever. They'll do more natural language based searches, and certainly that's something that Google's sort of getting better at all the time. They'll go in and they'll articulate a problem that they have, and so similarly, from an advisor perspective, you've got to couch your ability to help them solve their problem or take them on their journey in language that they understand and shows that you aren't just this, super well qualified automaton. You're actually a person who understands that they have a particular, unique, individual set of circumstances, and that you're able to, take them on that journey and solve their problems with them. So I don't think I'd like to say that the majority of advisors get that, but I'm not sure that's strictly true. You still go to most advisor websites and you'll find the language is still very much skewed towards, here's a directory of services that we offer. Here's a list of products that we can help you with. And it's very functional and internally sort of focused language that's used, rather than, as I say, putting it in customer terms, that your journey is about protecting your family or getting debts under control or saving for retirement or saving for a holiday or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think, and speaking, if we might move to websites because it's probably a good segue as part of the content strategy, and really just looking at some of the advisor websites that are out there at the moment are just, as you said, a lot of information, a lot of technical jargon, a lot of technical terms, a lot of product conversations, and I've sort of said this for many. If you're not a product-based advisor, but your website just says we do all these products. We're sort of just falling into the trap of, because everybody else used to do it that way, that we, advisor websites should be stating all of these product type stuff that we give advice on.
Yeah, look, I mean, don't get me wrong. I certainly, advisors face so many sort of compliance requirements these days that, there are some things that you just can't avoid having as part of your sort of web presence, in terms of details of your business and, dispute resolution and that sort of stuff. But I think that what I see is a lot of generic cookie cutter sort of web templates. It's almost as if years ago there was, a few companies that were specializing in financial advice websites, and everyone kind of went to them, and you can almost, tell who's had their website built a few years ago, and B, by the same sort of place. I think, there's a phenomenon I call mountain porn or kind of lifestyle porn. And what I mean by that is that you'll see a lot of them are using stock images of couples running along a beach or someone climbing a mountain and fjording a stream or wherever it is. And, I get that, some of these images are beautiful, but more and more, I think the websites that are standing out and are run by advisors that are recognized as sort of leading the charge and, winning all the awards for client engagement or innovation or whatever, they're increasingly using the website as an opportunity to humanize themselves and their brand. And so they're actually, if you see images on their website, it's more likely to be pictures of them in situ, pictures of their team, pictures of them and their clients. And, they're taking the opportunity they're putting a lot of effort into their web presence, recognizing that it's one of the first glimpses that a client or a prospective client will have, into your business.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. They're putting money into it. They're putting time and resource into it, and not just saying, oh, let's just do something that's okay. Some of the best websites I've seen that I really resonate ones with are very simple. They're not long scripts of content. It's not all about them and their journey and those sorts of things. They just pretty much say, we help people like this solve these types of problems. We feel, and feel this way about their money or whatever it might be, from, zero to hero or from fear to confidence or whatever it might be. We take that transformation journey. And this is exactly how you start your journey. Click here. That's, I think, some of those very simple, quick websites that just explain, we just do from this to this, and here's how you engage with us.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a piece of research that I commissioned when I was still at my previous role. So a white paper we did with the AFA, and it looked at what is important to clients or prospective clients when they're choosing an advisor, and technical knowledge and breadth of product offering and fees were way down the list of considerations, and what was up the top was more those personal relationship, sort of trust-based elements that were to do with the advisor as a human, as opposed to them as a super well qualified, kind of financial expert. And I think that what needs to be reflected in websites. I think the other thing I'd point out about websites is it's worth, in the context of doing a spring clean, it's worth advisors taking a look not just at their website on a desktop, but the reality is 90% of how it's going to be viewed is now on a mobile device. And it's worth checking your website on a mobile to see actually, has it been truly mobile optimized? And is it actually working well? Again, I'm not going to name names, but I searched one local advisor up recently, and the way it was rendering on a mobile device was that a lot of his photos of himself were kind of hidden behind a whole bunch of text, and so it actually completely undermined, the effort that he'd put into planning his site, in that it was all kind of melding together and it looked pretty unattractive and not really accessible.
Exactly, couldn't agree more. Now, when it comes to obviously the social media and website are all part of a content strategy. Let's get into that content strategy side of it, because back in the day there was a newsletter introduced, and there was a little bit of marketing collateral that went out. But sometimes a lot of the times the comms that went out were just ad hoc. They weren't actually pre-thought of or set up for 12 months. Talk to me about content strategies.
Yeah, look, I think that, I used the phrase sort of cookie cutter before, and I think that a lot of advisors, in the past have taken a cookie cutter approach to their engagement and their comms and their content as well. I think that, what is increasingly recognized is that you cannot take an ad hoc approach to content. If you're serious about using digital channels to gain new business, to gain prominence for your business, and to engage with existing clients, you need to be very structured and planned in the way that you go about that. And again, there's a few things I'd say. One, you need to bring everything back to what your objectives are with your content. I think I always talk about there's there's 5 sort of pillars of content. It can be used to boost your visibility. It can be about influencing people to behave in a particular way. It can be about building trust in your personal brand and your practice. It can be around driving people to become advocates for your business, or it can be about really positioning yourself as a leadership sort of center in your particular sort of chosen market. It can be, you can pick individual sort of objectives out of those things, or you can look at all of them as a cohesive set of pillars for your sort of content strategy. But look, in a basic sense, you've got to have a strategy. And that means setting out what's the purpose of your content strategy? Who do you want to talk to? Is it just existing clients, or is it about external sort of prospects? You've then got to look at, there are different types of content or different dimensions. So there's what I'd call utility content, which is the stuff based around, it's more functional. So it's content designed to help people engage with you as a business. So it could be stuff to do with products, or it could be to do with your processes, how to get in touch with you, what your fee schedule is, etc. That's that sort of basic stuff. There's promotional content, which is content that is specifically designed to have a call to action associated with it. So that could be, register for your sort of seminar, download a white paper that you've written, or attend an event, etc. It could be corporate style content, and in that space is content that more positions your sort of practice in terms of its reputation. So that could be things like client testimonials. And then there's what I call leadership content, which is the blogs. It's the stuff that's designed to, if you want to go down this path, position you as an expert in a particular client segment or a particular technical area, whether it be cash management or estate planning or investments or whatever it is. So I guess the key point is you've really got to take a considered approach to it. And look, it's not something that every advisor or advice business has the capability of doing themselves. I certainly accept the fact that what advisors are good at is helping their clients and advising. But having said that, you do get some advisors who are natural content producers. They actually love writing. They love blogging about things. They love creating little sort of video snippets to sort of send off to clients, on particular topics. So it's horses for courses, but you need to be, just like any aspect of your business, you've got to go about it in a very considered and methodical way. And it's ultimately got to be able to be brought back to you as a business and what you're trying to achieve and sort of who with.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that framework. That's really cool. That content pillar that, talking about I've stepped through them. Just tell me if I'm wrong here. That visibility for new clients, making sure that clients can see you. The second stage of influencing them, just to say, we can help you in these ways. Come and see us. Building trust being the third one. Then becoming an advocate being the fourth one. And existing clients is certainly a big part of that. And then that leadership part where you're showing leadership, and then inside of those, you can look at, are there utility functional tips? Is this a promotional call to action, or is it a corporate branding type piece of content for each of those categories?
Yeah, and then your sort of leadership stuff. So yeah, the 5 pillars, they can sort of ramp up to a nice, neat little kind of acronym. So they're the vital pillars: visibility, influence, trust, advocacy, and leadership.
Brilliant. Love it. Love a good acronym. Yes. And of course, as you mentioned before, put a plan in place. If you can't do it yourself, get somebody else to do it and commit to it. So content strategy, a very big part of that. Thank you. Now let's talk about the three Googles, the Google Maps, making sure you're seeing the Google reviews, and we can get into other reviews as well, and the Google search as part of the digital spring clean.
Sure, I think the old adage that you should sort of go and Google yourself is certainly a step that I'm sort of advocating here. And Google Maps, I think we actually lose track of all the different tools that are available through Google. And of course, one of the ones is sort of Google Business, Google My Business, where you can go in and you can really flesh out the way your business appears if someone searched for you and the way you sort of turn up in Google Maps. And typically, I'd say, it's probably the 80-20 rule, although it might even be more like 90% of businesses, not just advice businesses, but small businesses, they don't realize that they can go in and sort of enhance the entry that exists on Google Maps about their business. So, I guess at one extreme, I looked at a financial planning business, again, in the local area, and all they had was the bare minimum sort of information about their address, their phone number, the name of the business, and the photo was literally the one from the Google Map vehicle that is
street.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. It just had essentially a photo of their front door, and to the extent that their office was actually part of a local shopping centre, it wasn't even visible, the name of their business. There was no sort of signage, etc. So it wasn't sort of shedding that much light. And, the other end of the scale, and, certainly I think many of your advisors would know Glenn Hare and Jess Brady at sort of Fox and Hare. If you go and look at their Google Maps presence, you'll see that they've gone in and they've actually enhanced it by way of a lot of sort of descriptions as to what they do, but they've uploaded a lot of really great photos of themselves, the team, their clients, etc. And so they've done something that's free of charge. It doesn't cost you anything to go into your Google business profile and sort of do that. But it makes a hell of a difference when you're searching and you come up with a few advisors in the local area, and that will be the basis on which a lot of clients search, because of the sheer convenience. And it's a bit like when you walk past two cafes and one's heaving and packed with people and hard to get a seat, and the other one's got heaps of sort of empty tables and just one person in the corner tapping away on their laptop. As humans, we like to go to the busy one. Well, most of us do anyway, just because we deduce that they all know something that I don't, and it's no different to the psychology of when you're sort of searching for a business. So yeah, certainly you can take control of the way your business appears. Again, you can Google how to do this, but it's sort of Google Business Profile, Google My Business. They sort of keep changing the name, but definitely you should go in and do that. And I guess related to that is
just on that. I mean, obviously it's around saying, let's not expect Google to find the answers. Let's just make it really easy for them and go and tell them what we want them to show when someone's Googling us.
Yeah, correct. I think that, as the saying goes, this is a sort of a trust-based business, and there's certainly so many decisions and so many hurdles that you have to get over in someone's mind before they end up sort of engaging with you. But certainly, you can take control of your digital presence such that you reduce the friction, you reduce the hurdles that you put in the way of someone between them and them getting to your sort of business. And so doing things like adjusting your kind of presence is certainly one way of streamlining and making it a lot easier for them to get to your front door rather than a competitor's.
Yep. Now, I want to talk about because that's obviously the Google search and maps and understanding what Google's going to say about you and the images it's going to produce. But one of the things that I think is really important in this, especially for some of the search engine stuff, is this this concept of reviews. And reviews, obviously, we've had things like advisor ratings, Trustpilot, all these things out for a while. Google's obviously a big part of that as well. Google reviews. And I've seen some advisors doing Google reviews extremely well, and of course showing up on the first page of Google because they have so many reviews, and the more reviews we have, and the more people tend to trust the outcome of those reviews, rather than just like one or two testimonials on our website. Having 100 odd Google reviews is pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of aspects to that. You talked about sort of search prominence, and certainly there's a few things you can do to try and leverage Google's ever-changing sort of algorithm, and simplistically, one is to make yourself as big a target on Google as possible, and you can do that by the way your content is arranged and the sheer volume of your content. But as you say, the second way that's becoming increasingly just a normal part of doing business is the way you engage and leverage reviews. As you say, whether it be Google ratings, whether it be advisor ratings, whether it be Trustpilot, etc. I think that increasingly you're seeing advisors realize that this is something that is another important way of making clients' decision making easier, making the search process easier. And it's, in a way, it's not dissimilar to the way that if we go into a bottle shop and we're not a particular savvy kind of, wine drinker, we, tests have shown that we are attracted to the bottles that have lots of gold medals, because simplistically, those gold medals are saying that people who are far more qualified to judge the qualities of wine have deemed this to be, worthy of kind of recognition. And so, particularly if you're in a hurry, you go into a bottle shop and those gold medals are a great aid to an efficient sort of decision-making process. And ratings, reviews work on a similar sort of principle. I think that I think we've reached the tipping point now where most advisors realize that it's something that they need to embrace. I do think that in previous years there was a bit of a fear. There was a fear of having negative ratings published and what they would do. But I think that one thing that's always mentioned is only 20% of Australian adults get financial advice, and give or take a few percent. I think that's largely proved to be correct. But and certainly the biggest critics of advice are those who don't get it. So conversely, the vast majority, and I'm talking more than 80%, I'm talking 90% plus, the vast majority of clients, once they get advice, they are delighted. And so advisors who are confident that they're doing the right thing, and that's the majority of them, they should have no fear about what the clients are going to say with them, because 9 out of the 10 or even more are going to be absolutely delighted with what they've done. And in a way, ratings are sort of becoming the new referral. Instead of asking for, can I have a referral at the end of a successful sort of client meeting, is ask for a rating. I think in some ways that's actually easier for a client to help out with, is to write a nice review. That's something they can do pretty easily. I think Trustpilot, I think Google ratings are becoming particularly popular, but certainly I had a quick look at the advisor rating sort of website, and it's interesting that in my local area, which I guess you'd say is suburban, a lot of profiles were not even completed, and certainly most of them had no photographs, etc. Completely different to inner city advisors or CBD advisors, where virtually all of them had a photo, had a profile that was filled out, and they had numerous sort of client ratings. So I think that, I think that some advisors are a bit more advanced in terms of them embracing the importance of these ratings in the sort of client decision-making process, but I'm sure the rest of them will get there as well. So maybe that's an immediate thing that, listeners should do is go and search for themselves and their business online, see, if anyone has done any reviews, because anyone with a Google account can write a review on a business. So you might already have some ratings there, and go and flesh out your advisor ratings profile. So that I'd make those areas of priority.
Yeah, 100%. Google yourself or your name and write and type in reviews after it and have a look what's already out there, which is really important. And I love the concept of reviews and ratings. I think that people are, whenever you see the word testimonials, I see it on a website. I don't bother reading them because I know they're going to be good. But the idea of a review means that there could be a chance that there's something said in here that could be negative, and often, because it's got 1 star or 5, but not 5. But, there's always a possibility of getting a 1 star, which is the living on the edge. But you're absolutely right about advisors. They know that their clients are happy. They know they know that's a good time to ask them to fill out a review or to write a review. So, like you said, most of these ratings are going to be great by the nature of the fact that the clients are happy at the time they're doing it. That's fantastic. Now, if we might quickly move on to the video presence, because obviously there's been a lot of change going on over the last couple of years with advisors now doing Zoom meetings, and as you mentioned earlier on, Zoom is now it's just a word we use to discuss. But there's a lot there's a lot involved in the way that advisors can sort of spring clean up what they're doing with their online video presence.
Yeah, I think simplistically, one of the things to avoid is just assuming that what works in a face-to-face engagement scenario automatically translates to a video sort of conference. And there's a few sort of basic points there. I guess, probably the most important one is firstly how your presence actually appears on screen. I think that I'm not a fan of the virtual backgrounds. I think that both from a technical perspective, you look a bit fuzzy, but I think that you look a bit unprofessional as well. So I'd certainly recommend that advisors put a bit of effort into what's behind what's over their shoulder. So how they're actually appearing on screen, and that also includes just making a little bit of effort around the sort of acoustic sort of elements to the place that they're doing those meetings. Basic things like, how they're appearing with their sort of what they're wearing and that sort of thing. I'm not going to go into the equipment sort of aspect of it. That's more for another kind of day. But I think that just the immediacy of sort of how you're appearing, but then it's looking at things like what materials, what content are you actually sharing? Is it literally a face-to-face discussion, or are you having to take them through a sort of a document? Or if it's a first client meeting, you might have some, slide deck or whatever to sort of take them through. And I think the point I wanted to make there is that sometimes I think the attention span is a lot shorter in the context of a video meeting, and so you might need to tailor or shorten presentations to sort of suit that. You might look at turning some of your content into sort of ebooks. Sometimes flicking through a PDF on your screen can be a bit clunky if it's laid out as sort of a 2-page spread. And so, there's plenty of sort of, free or low cost ways of turning some of those materials into sort of ebooks that make it easy for clients to sort of turn the page and sort of zoom in and zoom out. So, take a look at that sort of thing. And then there's also, a good range of, again, either free or extremely low cost sort of collaborative tools to use where you can turn the meeting into a genuinely interactive one. So I think I was telling you earlier, just last week I ran a virtual kind of brainstorm. The platform I use for my business is a Google one, and they have a sort of a whiteboard sort of facility in Google Meets called the Jamboard. And what I was able to do was have 6 people, dial in to this sort of video call simultaneously, and they could, in real time, put their own little Post-it notes up on a whiteboard that was, shared on sort of everyone's screen. And yeah, I think they say necessity is the mother of invention, and I think part of a spring clean would be for advisors to, whatever platform they're already using in that regard, is to maybe take a little bit of time to go and explore some of the functionality, because they might discover amazingly powerful, functionality and sort of tools within those existing platforms that can really take their meetings to another level.
Yep, I 100% agree. There's definitely a lot of inside the platforms that aren't being used, as you said before, the whiteboard functions or the screen sharing functions. There's often a lot of overlay type things as well that can be done when it comes to headings. If you're talking through certain topics of an agenda, you can put those up and share them and make them part of the conversation. I also think recording is a big part of a big part of the great thing that you can do with online meetings. Record them. Basically, everything in the meeting is your file note. Which it goes pretty well. So there are certain things when it comes. I'm also not a big fan of the virtual background and setting up something behind you that's aesthetically relevant to the conversations that you're having. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it has to be within relevance. Obviously, I do a lot of recording in mine, and my background kind of looks like a recording studio, so it's relevant. But there's certainly a lot of things that people can do, and I encourage people to take some time out of their day to go and hunt around and find what's available, both software and hardware. I'm also a fan of making sure that you've got lights, you've got a decent camera, and you've got a microphone where people can clearly hear you, which is great.
Yeah, I think just on that, again, it's a trip to Officeworks if if your state permits you to go out and do shopping. We're sort of locked down at the moment, so that's a bit harder. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of things like backlights that you sort of stick on your screen and that sort of reflect a soft sort of light onto your face. You can, similarly, you can have those that you stick to your phone. Because with a tiny little sort of tripod that costs you about $20 and a sort of a ring sort of backlight, you can turn out some pretty high quality, content just on your phone. So you don't have to have a studio set up as sophisticated as someone like you, Fraser. That's for sure.
Yeah, and just in my little studio here, I just have a little Logitech Brio camera. I think you've got the same one, don't you, as me? And it's an HD camera. It's small. It goes on a tripod, not on top of my monitor. I just have it on a tripod so I can change the angle and move it around. A light and a plug-in mic. So certainly, investing a little bit of money in those things. Imagine if you were setting up a boardroom in an office, you'd spend a little bit of money on making it look nice. I'd suggest with online meetings that you do the same.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I do have the Brio, and it was a bit of an indulgence. It's kind of the Lamborghini of webcams, but it's just incredible how much of a step up it is from what's embedded in. I've got a MacBook Pro, and I didn't really give it much thought until I was sort of watching some online reviews and realized it's chalk and cheese. So, this was, from memory, it was just under $300.
Yeah.
And it's made the world of difference to the quality of how I'm appearing on other people's screens.
Yeah. One of the things I always notice when I'm on my MacBook is that when I open the MacBook, your thumb is at the point that you're always putting your thumb over the camera. So it gets pretty dirty pretty quickly often needs to be cleaned before each meeting if you're using the MacBook Pro one. Hey, Richard, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. How can people get hold of you and continue the conversation with you? What's the best way for them to find you?
Look, it's very 21st century. The easiest way, to be honest, is just on LinkedIn. So I try and be fairly active. I try and be fairly visible on there. But just connect with me, drop me a line, follow, whatever. I'm pretty easy to track down.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. So that's Richard Dunkerley, Dunkerley. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fraser. It's been a pleasure.